The new four-door Voyager and Town & Country minivans are at Beaverton Chrysler Plymouth. I'm Bob Lamphere. We need to make room for these in all the 96 models. That means the 95s must go, and they're all clearance priced. Hurry in for the closeout on all 95s. Our award-winning parts and service department is open with extended hours during the week and all day Saturday. Come in and see the difference at Beaverton Chrysler Plymouth on Canyon Road in Beaverton.
Town Hall examines our racial divide tonight at 6.
From ABC News. This Week with David Brinkley. Now from Washington, David Brinkley.
What on earth is happening to the Democratic Party? Whatever it is, it's not healthy. The party is looking a little pale, a little puny. Since 1992, 137 of its members, high level and low, have switched to the Republicans. 2 U.S. senators, 3 House members, 43 state legislators, 7 mayors, 5 sheriffs, 4 constables, and 8 Democratic senators will retire in 1996. All of this on top of the very heavy losses in the midterm elections in 1994. 8 in the Senate, 57 in the House, and 10 governors. What is to be made of all this? We'll ask our guests. Gary Hart, who's a former Colorado senator and candidate for president. Senator Richard Shelby, Republican, formerly a Democrat, Alabama. Senator Chris Dodd, Connecticut, chairman of the Democratic National Committee. And we will look at tomorrow's Million-Man March of Black Men on Washington in our discussion here with Sam Donaldson, George Will, and Cokie Roberts, here on our This Week program. First, a little news. Washington is preparing for Louis Farrakhan's March on the City tomorrow, the same way it prepares for crowds such as big events, inauguration, 4th of July, and so on. Extra police, public restrooms, restrictions on traffic. House Speaker Newt Gingrich calls on the black leaders to withdraw their support for Farrakhan's march because he said its reference to Jews as bloodsuckers is unacceptable. An attorney, Faye Williams, an organizer of the march, is here with us, and thank you very much for coming. Ms. Williams, happy to have you. Now, first tell me, what is the march about? What is it supposed to tell us? What is it supposed to tell the American people?
Actually, this is a march for black people. It's a holy day for us. It's a day of atonement and reconciliation. It is a time for black men to say that we want to join the strong black women in our community in doing more to show that we care about our families, that we're ready to take more responsibility for our families and for our communities. It is a time for us to come together, to close ranks around one another, and to empower our own community.
A day of atonement. Atonement for what?
Well, of course, you know, no one of us is perfect. All of us has sins. All of us have not done things that we should have done or done things that we should not have done. So it is a day for us to ask one another for forgiveness and also to be at one with God. It is a highly spiritual day, as I said, a holy day for us.
Why are not women allowed in the march?
Actually, women can come to the march if they want. It is just that the focus is on black men. But we do have some of our elders, we have some of our most revered, some of our most respected women who will be speaking to the men on our behalf. Women we trust, like Dorothy Height, Rosa Parks, Queen Mother Moore, and Maya Angelou has done a special poem that she will talk to the men about the kinds of things that women are interested in. And in the final analysis, if there are women who want to go to the march, they will be treated with courtesy and with dignity. And certainly we've played a leadership role in putting together the march.
Well, why the special attention given to men?
Well, it is just that there's a negative image of black men that's been created around the world, and we want to show a more positive image for black men. So we're having the attention on them for that day. It's just one day out of the year. Obviously, we expect to work together thereafter.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much. We hope the march goes peacefully and everybody gets to see it.
It's going to be wonderful and awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Very much. We will discuss this further in our roundtable today. And now on to politics, our basic subject. ABC's Jackie Judd has spent a good long time watching the political parties and their fitful history of successes and failures over the years. Jackie, tell us about it.
David, Sam Nunn of Georgia was the 8th Senate Democrat and the 4th from the South to decide he had enough.
After a lot of thought and prayer, I have concluded that my rewarding and fulfilling legislative career should end at the conclusion of my present term.
Nunn spoke optimistically about the future of America, but oddly and noticeably, there was not a single word spoken about the Democratic Party, a party that some say invited Nunn to leave.
And that message is that the politics is becoming very much more polarized, and voices in the center are not being heard as loudly and will not be heard as loudly.
When Bill Bradley of New Jersey announced his retirement, he was blunt in his views about his party's failures.
Democrats distrust the market, preach government as the answer to our problems, and prefer the bureaucrat they know to the consumer they can't control. Neither political party speaks to people where they live their lives.
These Senate retirements represent only a part of the party's erosion.
I, William Jefferson Clinton,
in a process that began with Bill Clinton's election and accelerated after last year's Republican landslide, 137 Democratic officials nationwide have switched parties. That includes 2 senators and 3 congressmen. Many of the defections have occurred in the South, a region largely lost to the Democrats in presidential elections, but still critical in congressional races.
Conservatives are Republicans. For the most part, Southern voters, white conservatives, vote Republican, not for the Democrats anymore. And so literally, we're seeing the dying off of the conservative Southern Democrat.
Nationwide, the Democratic Party is increasingly becoming a party of minorities and women. In 1992, when Mr. Clinton was elected, 40% of the nation's voters identified themselves as Democrats. This year, the year of the Republican, the figure is down to 33%. Some critics say the Democrats inside the Beltway are in a state of denial.
There's still a lot of Democrats on Capitol Hill who think that the Republican control is just the result of one bad Tuesday and things will slap back to normal, that the Democratic Party is the natural majority.
Democrats may not have figured out yet who they are or should be in this new political age, but there are signs they are learning how to attack the enemy.
Well, this is just a railroad. You can keep it.
Surveys show Americans increasingly nervous about the Republican spending plans and more confident about President Clinton's ability to manage the economy.
If the Democratic Party in 1994, because of that identification with government, paid a price at the polls for that voter concern, the Republican Party that is now identified as the governing party is going to pay an even heavier price.
I think there's a real risk for a political party in depending on the other side's mistakes. It leaves you vulnerable to the possibility that once in a while, they may not make enough.
Political parties go through hard times and survive, but it's a tough process. The last time the Democrats were this far down was in the 1920s, and then it took the calamity of the Depression and the leadership of Franklin Roosevelt to bring the party back. David?
Jackie, thank you. Coming next, a veteran of the Democratic Party's political wars, bearing the scars from a career of winning and losing, former senator from Colorado and candidate for president, Gary Hart. In a moment.
This Week with David Brinkley, brought to you by GE. From aircraft engines to appliances, we bring good things to life. And by ADM, supermarket to the world.
Every year, the importance of this land increases because every year there are a lot more mouths to feed. Over 95 million more, a figure greater than the population of Mexico. Fortunately, the food ingredients that Archer Daniels Midland makes from America's harvests can help feed people the world over. Food ingredients such as flour, protein, vegetable oils, and corn sweeteners. Making food and feed ingredients to meet our growing nutritional needs. That's why ADM is supermarket to the world.
As the official airline of the 1996 Olympic Games, Delta has created an event just for business travelers, the International Dash. With 4,900 daily flights to 300 cities, we'll fly you to the business world with a schedule that's as full as yours. And we don't do it so we can finish first. We do it so you can. Delta Airlines.
You love the way we
Gary Hart, former senator from Colorado, former candidate for president. Thank you for coming.
My great pleasure. Thank you.
Here with us in the studio are George Will, Sam Donaldson, Cokie Roberts. Now, Senator Hart, tell me, you don't mind my calling you senator, even though it's been a while.
Gary is
That's
fine.
the polite thing to do. You don't mind, do you? Anyway, tell me, what's wrong with the Democratic Party? Why is it losing so many members?
I think it's because it ceased to be a reform party sometime back in the 70s. It doesn't matter when. The Democratic Party has done best, at least in this century, when it was a progressive reform party. Obviously, clearly under Roosevelt and Johnson and others. The party, some of us tried to point out in the 70s and 80s, needed to have a reform platform again, instead of just holding on to the successes of the past. And we were not able to persuade the party leadership and constituency groups, and I think that's why we've largely failed.
You hang it all on the term reform party. What does that mean?
It means adapting institutions, structures, policies, and programs to a changing time. Most of what the Democratic Party has stood for in the last 20 or 30 years relates to an economy which still exists but is not the dominant economy. We're in an information communications age. We, again, attempted to fight for programs that we enacted 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago instead of adjusting our policies to this new age.
Before I turn you over to George's tender mercies, what happened? Why did this happen?
Again, I think we became a party of constituent groups. Instead of the leadership of the party telling our constituency groups what we believed in and asking them to support those beliefs, our leadership instead went to the constituency groups and said, tell us what you want and we'll give it to you.
Well, the Republicans in Congress certainly are in a reforming mood. Are they doing it right or wrong? How would you
I think it's a counter-reformation. I am a disciple of the theory of cycles in American history, Arthur Schlesinger's thesis, and I think what we're involved in here is not an era of reform but counter-reformation. I think that large parts of the contract and the Gingrich leadership is really an attempt to take the country back before certainly the age of the Great Society and probably the age of the New Deal.
But what's the matter with this? I mean, in a sense, they're saying this is reforming the government precisely because the structures and policies that you're talking about haven't worked. I mean, you seem to be suggesting that the Democratic Party should do more of what seem to have gotten them in trouble.
No. My contest with former Vice President Mondale was exactly over that issue on trade and education and a lot of other issues. I think what we're involved in here is a realignment. I think, I guess you're going to be talking with Senator Shelby. Senator Campbell of my state and others are changing parties. In my view, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. I think people who do not agree with the fundamental premises of change and reform ought to go to the party of memory, as Emerson called it.
President Clinton's position seems to be me too, only less and slower. I want to balance the budget, but in 10 years, not 7. I want to restrain Medicare growth, but less dramatically. Is that the message he's communicating?
I think it is.
Well, let's look at the election next year then. Let's talk presidential politics. What happens?
I think President Clinton is reelected principally because there doesn't seem to be a strong a contender against him who has a very much stronger message.
So it has nothing to do with the parties? It has to do with the personalities of those running?
Yes. I think President Clinton has managed to create a party of his own and is increasingly operating outside the parameters of what is left of the Democratic Party.
Are you suggesting he appeals to Republicans then? He crosses party line?
He better try to. It's what I tried to do in Colorado.
What about Colin Powell? Where do you see him? Is he going to run? Is he going to fit in anywhere?
General Powell is part of the phenomenon of personality in the effort to find largely non-ideological, non-partisan, bigger-than-life characters to operate as symbols of leadership. I think the fact that he doesn't seem to have an ideology operates clearly in his favor. And so long as he can sustain himself and with the help of the press as a national leadership figure, I think he will be on that stage.
And what about you? Are you the once and future senator?
No.
There's talk that you may run in Colorado.
I have always believed in public service, not as a career, but as a commitment, a dedication. I operated my own 2-term limits on myself. I have given thought to trying to come back. I haven't decided. We'll wait and see.
When will you decide?
sometime this fall.
A lot of people believe that the business about the monkey business has cooked you forever.
Probably.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, wait a second. I cut you off. You said probably, and then you said no.
Oh, I said probably they believe that, but it's not true.
All right.
How do you say it's not true, given what we've seen with Senator Packwood, for instance? Don't you think that this is a world where that
much
becomes...
different situations?
Because?
Because they are different.
But you don't think that the atmosphere is such that this would be a very difficult political move?
I think voters have learned to discriminate between certain kinds of conduct and other kinds of conduct.
On this, back to the Democratic Party as a whole, you talk about the reforms of the 70s. A lot of people think that's what happened to the party, is that the reforms that you helped put in place with George McGovern drove away a lot of middle-income, middle-class, God-fearing people who thought the party became too liberal, too far out, too progressive in a intellectual sense.
Well, the nomination reforms of the period between 68 and 72, as you well know, were really the result of the divisive convention in Chicago that almost destroyed the Democratic Party at the time. My point of view, perhaps self-serving, is that those reforms, which I had personally very little to do with, and in fact George McGovern had something but not everything to do with, kept the party together, perhaps longer than it would have otherwise stayed that way.
Are you saying that Mr. Clinton's party is the Democratic-Republican party, something like that?
I think what is going on in this country is a major political realignment, and I think we will end up sometime early in the 21st century with what, as I said earlier, Emerson characterized as the party of memory, or a very limited government and a reform party. And whether that is the Democratic Party as we know it today, I don't know.
That was my question. The Whigs disappeared, a lot of parties disappeared. The Democratic Party, as we've known it for the last decade, or rather last century, will it disappear?
I think if it doesn't once again become a progressive reform party, and by the way, the roots there are also in Theodore Roosevelt, not just in Franklin Roosevelt, then there will be not a third party, but a second party, and the Democratic Party, as we know it today, will become a third party.
What does that mean, though? What does that mean in a programmatic sense, not just saying the words progressive reform?
Let me give perhaps 2 or 3 examples. I think our country, both the Bush and Clinton administrations, missed a major opportunity at the end of the Cold War to do the kind of creative thinking that George Marshall and Dean Acheson and others did in the late 40s, and that is totally redesign the international economic and security institutions. We're trying to, in Bosnia and elsewhere, run a world on institutions designed for a totally different situation. I think that's part of the reason we've got the problems we've got. A second major reform, if you will, platform is to adjust the domestic policies of this country to the new information age. Education and training, trade, taxation, research and development. This revolution is occurring almost without relationship to our national government.
George, you have a little time left.
Pat Moynihan said that in about the 1970s, the Republican Party became the party of ideas. Who in the Democratic Party, elected official, thinks?
That's unfair, Mr. Will. I think they all think. It's a question of are they thinking the right things.
Well, who thinks creative?
The intellectual, I think it's clear, and I wouldn't disagree with you at all. I think the intellectual energy in American politics the last 10 or 15 years shifted from the left to the right.
In your explanation of the Powell phenomenon, you said part of his appeal is his absence of ideology. How do you square that with the fact that in 1994 we had probably the most ideological off-year elections in history? What was the country saying?
That's true. I think the voters, what appealed to the voters was not a rigid orthodox, if you will, conservative right-wing ideology. It was the fact that there were ideas, simplistic, overly simplistic, but in the vacuum, with nothing coming from the Democratic side, I think an idea is always going to prevail.
Senator, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks very much for coming. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Coming next, one of the formerly Democratic senators who have switched to the Republican Party, Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama. In a moment.
People of Tokyo, like people everywhere, know their future depends upon getting more electricity in a cleaner, more economical way. To get it, they turn to GE, the world leader in gas and steam turbine technology. When Tokyo Electric Power gave GE our largest export order ever, it gave Tokyo the largest, most efficient power plant of its kind in the world, which means more jobs for our people back home and a better future for the people of Japan.
No matter how you try to spoon it out, or squeeze it out, or pour it out, you can never get the fat out of sausage. But now there's Breakfast Links from Green Giant. They're all vegetable with no cholesterol and 81% less fat than pork sausage. And the taste? They're everything you'd expect from the Giant. Breakfast Links and breakfast patties from Green Giant.
Ho, ho, ho.
When you want the flavor, not all the fat.
Its roomy interior can accommodate 3,000 comfortably. It boasts advanced safety features, ergonomically designed control panels, and a superior ventilation system for cleaner air. Announcing Ford Motor Company's state-of-the-art assembly plants. All the enhancements we made for the people in here may be appreciated most by the people in here. Ford, quality is job one.
Wednesday, Selena, gunned down allegedly by her #1 fan. How did a little girl from Texas become an international superstar? Home movies never seen before tell the tale. Selena's fiery life and tragic death. Primetime Wednesday.
Senator Richard Shelby in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Thank you for coming in. Pleased to have you.
Thank you, David.
You're formerly a Democrat, now a Republican, and you're one of a apparently growing group. What is happening to the Democratic Party as you see it? It's too much to say it's falling apart, but it's losing a lot of members. What's happened? Why?
David, I believe that the Democratic Party that I was a member of for so many years is imploding, and it's destroying itself from the inside because basically it's in full retreat because it doesn't have any new ideas. It's shop-worn, it's tired, and I think the Republican Party is going to be the party of opportunity and hope for America. I know from the inside. I was a yellow dog Democrat for a lot of years, although a Southern Democrat. But without the Southern Democrats, where a real realignment is going on, the Republican Party is going to be cast as a minority party at best.
Well, you say the Republican Party has all the new ideas and the Democrats don't. Why don't you steal some of them?
Well, I don't want any of the ideas of the Democratic Party. I fought a lot of that within the party for a long time. I thought when I was in Congress and also when I was in the Senate, would meet in a caucus from time to time, I would be one of the few that would oppose a lot of the Democratic ideas because I thought they were not in tune with the American people. They didn't meet reality today. Government was so big and the Democratic Party wanted it to grow. That's why, among other reasons, I left the Democratic Party. And David, I believe you're going to see in the next year or two, you're going to see not 130 or 40 people change parties. You're going to see an acceleration of that in the South, the border states, and all over America.
Well, give me a number. How many?
I'll say at least twice what we've done. I believe we're around 140, 42 total, local, state, and national offices. But I think it will continue to grow, and especially so in the South, not just Alabama, but the old 11 states of the Deep South, the old Confederacy. They're going Republican. The Democrats are going to be in the minority in the future. I really believe that.
Senator, many people believe that the president certainly has got the message of the '94 election and that what he's offering now is tepid, kinder, gentler republicanism. That he's saying the Republican ideas are fine if you do them slower and do them more temperately. Do you think he's going to make progress in this?
Well, I hope he won't, but some of it he might make some superficial progress, George. But Bill Clinton is a good politician. He's what some people would call a political animal with probably without a peer. On the other hand, ideas that are new and will be proven are important. And I believe if you try to steal someone's ideas and make them part of your own, they won't work, and especially in the case of Bill Clinton.
This autumn really is the autumn of calling the American people's bluff by the Republican Party. The American people talk a conservative game, but may not be ready to have Medicare cut and other cuts and sectors in agriculture interests down south are objecting to. Is it possible that the American people are ideologically conservative but operationally liberal? That is, that they talk a conservative game but want liberal governance in the particulars?
Well, you have some of that there. You know, we used to say in the South, we like states' rights and federal aid, the old shop-worn phrase. There's some of that going on in Congress right now. But I believe it's very important, George, for the Republican Party to stay the course, to go through with a lot of things that we believe in and do not back down now, especially in the next 2 months.
Senator, the Democratic Party traditionally has represented the working person. The working person used to wear a blue collar. Now the working person increasingly wears a white collar. And the Republican Party traditionally has represented those who use capital to create jobs, and also, the Democrats say, go to the country club. Has this all changed? Is all of this blurred now?
I think it's changed a lot, Sam, especially in the South and the border states, and perhaps all over America, because the Republican Party in the South is made up of everybody, but also the main body is working people, people that were traditionally Democrats. A lot of them started changing in presidential races, but the race, in the race of 1980, when Reagan ran, changed it a lot, and I think a lot of them were Reagan Democrats. Now they're Republicans, and I think they like what they are, and they're going to continue to grow.
Well, let's take one of the issues, the tax cut bill, $245 billion, although the Senate bill perhaps skews it a little bit more toward the middle class than the House bill. Still, it is a bill that favors high-income people over low-income people.
Well, if not exactly, Sam. What I assume you're referring to. Wait a minute. Let me state this. I think you're referring to the capital gains reduction. That's for everybody who invests. It's not just for the people who have done well. It's for the little people who are beginning to save. They're going to buy property, buy stock, or anything else.
I was referring to that.
But a lot of the tax is for the middle class working people, and I'd like to see more and more of it targeted in that area.
I was referring to that, plus the 10% drop in tax on corporations, their corporate income tax.
Well, you got to remember this. I think we're overtaxed. 3 years ago, we had the biggest, 2 years ago, we had the biggest tax increase in the history of this country. I was the Democrat then. I opposed it from the beginning. We had to have the vote of the Vice President of the United States to pass it. I think the American people need some tax relief.
Well, I bring this up not just to try to manage our discussion on taxes, but to go back to one of George's questions, and that is, are there really new ideas in the Republican Party, or just the Republicans have gotten smarter about how to package their old ideas toward the wealthy so that they appear to be toward everybody, and the Democrats don't seem to have the ability to counter that? Well, it's a propaganda war.
I believe, Sam, that the ideas of the Republican Party is to broaden itself, which it has, to all Americans, all people in America who want to work, who want to save, regardless of who you are, regardless of your color, and say, look, we've got an opportunity in America if we work together. And that's what the Republican Party is about. I think it's a new idea in Washington. It might not be a new idea in the world.
Senator, you just said, and I want to clarify this, that the tax cut you would like to see aimed more at middle-class people. Does that mean you will move to change the bill that has come out of the Senate Finance Committee when it comes to the floor?
I will have to see the details of it and see what we can line up to do. But the more we can target the middle class of America, I think it helps the Republican Party.
So you think it'll be changed, the bill will be changed?
We'll have to see. I hope so.
The other question I had, you talked about working class people coming into the Republican Party in the South, but those are working class white people. A large part of what's going on in the South is based on race, and I wonder how much that concerns you as it gets more and more polarized.
Well, let me tell you this, the Republican Party is open to everybody. And
but it
in
doesn't,
Alabama,
it might be open to everybody, but you know what the voting statistics are, Senator.
Let me tell you this, though, if you'll look around the South, from Texas to Virginia, you're seeing more and more black people, entrepreneurs, working hard, wanting to join, and are joining the Republican Party because they see that there's no future for their people, for themselves, for America in the Democratic Party. It's bankrupt. What it stood for doesn't work, and that's why a lot of those people are leaving it, just as I did.
Senator, can I just ask you quickly, what's your view on the Million Man March tomorrow?
Well, I hope a lot of good things come out of it. If they can get together, the people on the march, and say, we're going to work together and we're going to bring the races together and build America, that's going to be very positive. Let's hope that's what happens.
Senator Shelby, thank you. Thanks very much for coming. We're pleased to have you with us. Coming next, Senator Chris Dodd, Democrat, Connecticut, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and his thoughts on his party members switching to the Republicans in a moment.
Gentlemen, I see the future of insurance.
Where?
Right there.
To find opportunities in insurance, these guys could follow the trends.
This way?
I don't know. Follow the financial pages.
That way?
Maybe. Or follow the company with $70 billion in assets.
Where? Right there.
The company that's always one step ahead, ITT Hartford.
Oh.
For 75 years, ITT, the one to follow.
He was 50 when it happened. In 3 months, he went from perfect vision to almost total blindness. In test after test, doctors were at a loss. Finally, a test was done using GE's revolutionary magnetic resonance imager.
Look at this. Incredible.
The doctors discovered a tumor affecting his optic nerves, and he was treated. Within days, he got his vision back.
Hey, how about a smile?
And everything that came with it.
This Week with David Brinkley will continue in a moment. After this from our ABC stations.
This week, new approaches to finding a job.
Also, the impact of America's gambling fever.
Plus, the life and times of David Brinkley on Good Morning America.
Here on ABC.
You know, a lot of people think that all Italian clothing is expensive. Well, that used to be the case, but now the Men's Warehouse has positioned one of our employees in Italy supervising the direct production of our Italian clothing. That's why we can offer quality Italian suits from $300. That's great value, I guarantee it.
Now open in Lloyd Center, lower level near Marshall's.
It was the subject of much discussion. If we move the top edge of the windshield, some engineers argued, you'd get a 32% better overhead view. But if we moved the leading edge, others maintained, there'd be a 48% better view of the road. Fortunately, both views prevail. The new Dodge Caravan. See your local Northwest Dodge dealer today.
Catch the early morning spirit with Channel 2 News weekday mornings at 5:30.
Senator Dodd, chairman of the Democratic National Committee, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, David.
Pleased to have you with us. Now, I don't think you see yourself as a captain of a sinking ship, do you?
No, it's been, listening here, I felt like Will Rogers, I guess that line, I don't belong to any organized political party, I'm a Democrat, having listened to the last 20 minutes or so. Quite the contrary. And I'm not going to sit here and suggest that we don't have our difficulties at all. That would be foolish to make a statement like that. But if you look recently at the trend lines, and I think it's important to focus on, the president's doing better than he has been politically in the last 2 years, according to the poll results. We see that there's far less support for the Republican agenda in Congress. The most unpopular national political figure in the country, by a fare thee well, is the leader of this revolution, Newt Gingrich. We believe we're coming back. We're going to be strong. It's far more competitive. I think that's healthier for the country in many, many ways. But to declare this party dead and over with, I think is very, very premature, to put it mildly.
Well, nobody's done that. But
well, listening to some, I thought I had heard that.
No. You know I wasn't serious. Now, how do you account for the resurgence of the Republican Party? There is one. You can't deny that.
No, I think it's more in the last election, but frankly, had the campaign been run on the agenda that we've seen in this Congress, I think you might have had a different result. I mean, not only what we're doing, had they said, look, we're going to
cut $270 billion out of Medicare. We're going to cut $182 billion out of Medicaid. We're going to have a $245 billion tax break. By the way, we're really not going to do anything on term limits. We're not going to do anything on the line item veto, on product liability, some of the issues that were very much a part of that contract. I'm not so sure you would have had the results you had last fall. But I don't deny that was a major, major message the American people were sending, and a message to Democrats. I think we've heard that message, and I think how we're responding to it reflects the attitudinal change that has occurred.
What about the results next fall, though, Senator? You have 8 Democratic senators already retiring, and each in seats that could easily go Republican. There's talk now of not only not having a filibuster-proof, of the Republicans having not only a filibuster-proof Senate, but a veto-proof Senate.
Let me state the obvious, something I know all of you will agree with. Obviously, a year is a lifetime. A week is a lifetime in politics. But if the election were held today, based on what our most recent poll data indicates, in fact, the people of this country would restore Democratic control to the Congress. And frankly, that's, I think, a reaction to what they've seen over the last number of months by the Republican leadership.
But as you know, those are polls that are nationwide polls that mean nothing state by state and district by district.
Well, that's true. I don't disagree. But it's important. And let me also mention this: in the eight seats that are being vacated, in all but I think 1 or 2 of those, we have very strong, viable candidates that are going to be, I think, be elected. In 5 of the presently held seats by Republicans, we're very competitive. We have strong candidates running in Oregon, and Mr. DeFazio and Ron Wyden. We're going to be competitive in Colorado, where Hank Brown's seat is open. We have a strong challenge in the race in South Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina. And if all of our incumbents are up, they're in very good shape today. Now, I'm not predicting a complete turnaround here. I don't know what'll happen. But to people to suggest, because we've had retirements in these seats, that somehow that indicates we can't win these seats back, they haven't really looked at these races very carefully.
Before I turn you over to my colleagues, I'd just like to ask you about the president and this march tomorrow. Should President Clinton be denouncing Louis Farrakhan and the things that he is saying? We haven't heard him do that.
Well, you know, Louis Farrakhan sort of defines himself by his own rhetoric, and I certainly, there's no other way to describe who he is than an anti-Semite and a bigot. But I don't think the president needs to get involved in endorsing demonstrations or marches at all. There are a lot of good people who will be a part of this march. People like Mayor Smoke and Mayor Archer, Reverend Jackson, Don Payne. The goals, as have been stated, I think are important ones. This is not a riot tomorrow, it's a march. And I think we ought to watch and see what comes of this. If good things come of it, then we can put aside the voice of one individual who I think most people, include many of the very people who will be there tomorrow, have denounced themselves, becomes less important, and the goals become more important.
But isn't it the role of political leaders, particularly the President of the United States, to voice something about someone like that?
Well, I do, and I think he has, but he's also pointed out that at this particular juncture, what we need to be trying to do, if we can, is to find ways in which we're going to work together. It isn't going to be enough that we just have black American males taking far greater responsibility for their families and communities, getting rid of the cesspools that exist in our urban areas with the crime and the violence, but also that we've got to learn to live together as races in this country. Mr. Farrakhan represents a complete setback, in my view, towards that goal. So I think certainly identifying him for what he is, but not confusing him with the goals that I think are reflected by the overwhelming majority of people who will be a part of that march, who reject Mr. Farrakhan, but embrace the ideals I've just mentioned.
Senator Dodd, let's not talk about the Republican agenda. Let's talk about the Democratic agenda. In 1993, a Democratic president took power, and you had a Democratic majority in Congress. But there was no health care reform, there was no welfare reform, there was no campaign reform. What does this say to people who you ask next year to restore Democrats to Congress?
Well, in those first 2 years, in fact, many of the things the president said he was going to do, he did. And he had a very successful legislative Congress, one of the most successful in American history, by the way. We didn't get health care reform. I regret that. And there were a lot of reasons why that didn't happen. But certainly the fact the president tried to do something about that, I don't think you ought to be faulted for that.
Well, Senator, trying is, you know, you don't get A for effort in the American political system. You get A for results.
Well, he should get an A for results then, because over 80% of his legislative agenda was adopted by that Congress. I think you've got to go back to the first term of Dwight Eisenhower to find a similar record of achievement.
Well, what do you say then to the voters in 1996, though? I mean, what do you say? Trust us again, and we'll get it done this time?
No, I think, frankly, you're watching what this Republican leadership is offering the American public, and they're horrified by it. 83% in recent polls have indicated that they reject these draconian efforts, and let's call them for what they are here. The $270 billion cut in Medicare is specifically designed to pay for a tax break. That's what it is. You can try and dress this up all you want. The American people are beginning to see this agenda for what it is. That's important, but also a positive message. This administration, despite the fact it may be the best kept secret, has reduced the size of government, has made it more efficient, has reduced paperwork, has improved or tried to improve the educational system of this country by making positive suggestions and positive contributions towards those goals. That is also going to be part of our message, and that is beginning to resonate, and that's why the most recent polls indicate the president's doing a lot better than his opponents would like.
Senator, you say the Republican agenda is horrific, but the president wants to balance the budget just 2 years later. He wants to cut, as you'd like to say, cut Medicare, but slightly less. He wants to reform welfare, and indeed he signs on to the Senate bill, which ends a 60-year entitlement. Why is he good and this marginal difference horrific?
Well, it isn't just a marginal difference at all, Mr. Will. It's quite significant. Just look at what the Republicans have now proposed on Medicare. Doubling premiums, doubling the deductibles, providing a windfall to doctors and hospitals as a sop in order to win their support politically. What we've talked about is a $90 billion cut in Medicare and focused in an entirely different direction. So it isn't just the dollars, it's where those savings come from. The president has said on welfare reform that he wanted to change the system, but he's not going to change the system that would deny people the opportunity to move from welfare to work, deny them child care benefits, the kind of assistance they'll need in order to make that transition. There's a big difference between saying you're for something and then how you're going to achieve it.
I grant
George,
you that.
you got
Now,
half a minute.
the president said in 1992 that he was the candidate of change. He may be in a position in the next few weeks of vetoing a tax cut, a balanced budget, and welfare reform. Can he win that argument?
I think he can. He doesn't want to do that. Let me first of all tell you this. He really would like to sign a welfare reform bill, and he is for tax cuts that are focused. He and I, in fact, have some disagreement on that. I'd put the tax cut issue aside entirely if it were my choice. But he has stated he's for some of these tax cuts. If the Republicans in Congress, and they are leaders as well, will come to that table. Remember, this is a president that was highly criticized this past summer by Democrats because he put a Medicare cut on the table, because he put out a balanced budget proposal over 10 years, and Democrats went after him. Those offers are still good. The president wants the Republican leadership to step forward and try and resolve this crisis before it becomes larger than it is.
Senator Dodd, thank you. Thanks for
you.
coming. Very nice having you.
Nice to be
Come
here.
again. Coming next, our discussion here among ourselves with some thoughts about what is called the Million Man March in Washington tomorrow and other timely items in a moment.
Todd and Celia Unger began their voyage together nearly 40 years ago. Today, they embark on retirement as carefree as when they first set out. That's because for the past 20-some years, they've worked with a broker from Dean Witter.
Respect the power of a client's dream and help them achieve it.
At Dean Witter,
We measure success one investor at a time.
It's called the ripple effect. The way one isolated action can set so many others in motion. You see it in nature, and you can see it in this country's economy too. When we export our precious resources in their raw form, the benefits are fleeting and few. But when they're processed first and given added value, the momentum is undeniable. Productivity increases, our balance of trade grows ever stronger, and wave after wave of new jobs is created. Not just in processing, but in everything from transportation to financial services, packaging to construction. In fact, studies predict that if just 10% more of our agricultural exports were traded as value-added products, 100,000 new jobs would be created, personal income would swell by more than $2 billion, and gross output would grow by an additional $5 billion. All within these shores.
No one gives you more ways to add the impact of color to black and white documents. Xerox Color. A simpler way to do good work.
Billy Crystal's a city slicker.
I think you look like one of the village people.
Who's not at home on the range.
City folk.
Billy Crystal.
I'm on vacation!
And Jack Palance. In City Slickers, tonight here on ABC.
Tuesday, Joan London takes you on an exclusive journey to places never seen before. Race against time with a secret bomb squad. Then, get a VIP pass to a private Michael Bolton concert. Plus, some Las Vegas action as you sit with a high roller.
Sweat, sweat.
And see high-tech security secrets on an all-new Behind Closed Doors with Joan London Tuesday on ABC.
Now a little conversation here among ourselves, and if any of us has switched parties, I'm not aware of it. I don't think anyone has. So maybe we can finish with that. So, George, tell me what you think about the Million Man March. What does it mean? What's it about?
Well, it's about Louis Farrakhan. It's about him cunningly inserting himself into the top ranks of leadership of African Americans, and it's a tragedy. He hates white people, but he's no threat to white people. He hates Jews, but he's no threat to Jews. He is a tremendous threat to black America.
Well, it started out to be about Louis Farrakhan, but I think it's larger than that now. I think a lot of black men are coming to Washington who don't support Louis Farrakhan, who are not members of the Nation of Islam. So what are we going to say to them? We, meaning the white community. Okay, you can't march, because if you do, you're a bigot and you're a Farrakhan person. And if you do march, watch out. I think it's larger now than Farrakhan. It's too bad a more responsible African-American leader didn't organize the march. He did. But I think at this point, we ought to see it as a march of, if it's 1 million or 800,000 black men who have a message that is not one of Farrakhan's
You can't
message.
separate. You can't separate the message from the messenger, and he will be elevated in the country as a whole, and certainly in the community as a result of this march. And I think it shows a couple of things. One, we haven't paid enough attention to him. He's been on campuses for the last several years with people responding to him, and we haven't. And paid the amount of attention that was required. And two, there is a vacuum in the leadership in the black community that allows him to walk right into it. But I think even aside from that, aside from the goals of the march as in terms of black men, if you read the excellent essay that John Lewis, a longtime civil rights fighter who is a congressman from Georgia, has in this week's Newsweek, he says, look, when I came here in 1963 to march, and he was the hothead then, he was the person that the Kennedy forces had to sort of keep down, it was to bring people together. It wasn't for blacks only, it wasn't for men only, it was for the purpose of bringing people together. And after a week when we've seen the kind of polarization that we've just seen in this country, to have more polarization just seems nuts to me.
Well, Cokie, you can separate the message from the messenger. This is an extreme case. We do it all the time in politics. I don't know whether the polls are accurate that were cited, if Newt Gingrich is the person who is most disliked in national politics. But I'll tell you this, a lot of people support the agenda and support what the Republicans are doing in the House. They separate that. I know people are looking at Colin Powell now as a prospective presidential candidate, Ralph Reed and others who are fiercely against abortion on our broadcast. However, said, well, yes, maybe he is pro-choice, but we still might like him. We separate the message from the messenger all the time, as long as we do it declaratively.
But this is a difference of a degree so large as to be a difference in kind.
It's a large degree.
Gingrich is a polarizing figure, but he is within the mainstream of political discourse. Farrakhan is an anti-Semite, a racist, and a lunatic. I mean, he believes the most bizarre, absurd things.
Well, what do you make about Abraham Foxman, who is the national director of the ADL, who says that he supports the march? And he's a respected Jewish leader. No one is going to say he's soft and Farrakhan. He says, however, let me just finish his position. He says, however, you must denounce Farrakhan and his anti-Semitism, anti-white rhetoric, but you can then march. Has he taken leave of his senses?
Suppose in 1929 in Weimar, Germany, Adolf Hitler had said, I've organized this march, and we're going to march under my leadership. It's going to be called Hitler's March. But join if you're in favor of building autobahns. Right. And join if you're in favor of tax reform.
Talk about taking the degree to its ultimate, George.
But Sam, other people who are involved, lieutenants of Farrakhan and Benjamin Chavis, have said essentially, if you come to this march, you are endorsing Louis Farrakhan.
We don't have to believe them.
Well, but I mean,
who are they anyway? Chopped liver, as far as I'm concerned.
I just don't see any way
You're
of separating
carry a sign
it.
saying
And
that?
I also think it's
Chopped
quite
liver?
remarkable how none of our political leaders have said a word about this. I mean, you have never seen so many people duck for cover so
Well,
fast.
I agree with you on that state. They should speak out just as Senator Dodd spoke out and denounce Farrakhan, denounce his hatred, his anti-Semitism, his bigotry, but then say, it looks to me like if 1 million black men are coming here to show something else because they think it's a march of solidarity, they want to say to all of America, hey kids, pay some attention to us and our needs, that we ought not to denounce them simply because they're doing this.
Since the outbreak of Powellmania, this was the first test of his leadership, and he flunked it. Nothing. I mean, he has this communication. It's still unclear what sort of the communication was, but he had some communication with the Farrakhan people over this, and he said essentially, I'm too busy to come to the march. That's not the issue raised by this.
Well,
this is a coup d'etat in the ranks of black
General
leadership.
Powell at Howard University, in a speech when he was still chairman of the Joint Chiefs, made very clear that he denounces that kind of anti-Semitism. I feel certain he will do this, particularly if he enters political life.
I'm not talking here of guilt by association. I'm talking guilt of association. Anyone who marches or will not distance themselves from this man is guilty.
George, what is that you were reading
And
about?
you are the judge, jury, and executioner of 1 million black men in this country?
Yep.
Wow. Thank goodness I'm white.
You got it right.
I mean, I would hate to be under your fine
Suppose
side.
David Duke led a march saying, I know I've got these peculiar views, but I'm for tax reform.
And that's
I'm
in
for better
fact,
highways."
that exactly
please.
happened in
Exactly.
Louisiana, where a lot of people said we hate David Duke, but we think he has a message about the big corporations getting tax breaks, and we hate that, and we're voting for him. And you know what? We thought all of those people were racist because they understood, and we understood, that they couldn't separate David Duke's populist views from David Duke's racist views. That's a very good example. You can't separate them.
Everyone says they like the message of the march. I'm confused by the message. The message of the march is supposed to be responsibility. So what? Skip school and don't go to work. I don't think that's the message that we ought to be sending.
Well, I mean, people march for various causes in Washington. They skip their jobs. They skip their responsibilities for a day. You don't denounce them all, do you?
They are coming to
Just
Washington.
this march.
They are coming to Washington, they say, because some of the literature associated with this, because Washington is the seat of their oppression. So, organized as a group, a victim group, coming what? To the government saying we want something from government? If government's oppressing them, it's a funny kind of oppression that allows the government, this oppress state,
I will
to
recall to
assemble
you-
1 million people on its front lawn.
A week ago, we had some civil rights leaders here who said, if there's to be a march, why march on Washington? Why not march on housing projects which are filled with rats and guns and drugs? March on all kinds of evil places in this country, not Washington.
Well, David, the bonus marchers marched on Washington. They wanted their World War I bonus.
Precisely.
Every February, the people who don't like Justice Blackmun's decision on abortion, they march on Washington.
Well, that is a
and they
Washington
take
story.
time off from work to do so. I mean, marching on Washington, which is the national capital, is a fine, time-honored tradition. It's the thing to do. I don't want them to riot.
Depending on what you're after. The bonus marchers you mentioned came here to get money. They said the government owed them money,
So a
and
lot of these
Douglas
black men
MacArthur
come here
drove them away.
to try to get their rights and their freedoms.
Or to funding for government programs or whatever. But
Go ahead.
well, I mean, I actually wanted to come back to the subject of Powell. So if you want to do that.
Well, let me just say this. Sam, you said that people have come here in the past to get their rights and their freedom. You don't hear that language about this march. They're not asking for another civil rights bill. They are free. That's
well,
not the problem in black America.
That is the other point that John Lewis made in his piece. Exactly that. Is that in 1963, people were coming to Washington, where the nation's legislature was meeting to discuss a specific piece of legislation, and which then resulted in several pieces of legislation, which have in fact provided discrimination, anti-discrimination laws for the workforce, anti-discrimination in housing, and voting rights. And then at that point, when you have those kinds of laws in your favor, which was not true in 1963, you go back into the community and make them work.
I don't know why everyone's coming. I don't know why everyone's marching. Maybe 3 or 4 guys are marching because they don't like the fact that the Congress seems to be wanting to change the Medicaid program so that poor Americans in states, many of whom are black, won't have any medical care.
Well, we won't have any more time either because we've used it all up. So hold on, we'll be back in a moment.
This week with David Brinkley, brought to you by GE. From plastics to financial services, we bring good things to life.
To experience the true joy of cooking, it must be pursued with reckless abandon and total disregard for the inevitable splatters, spills, squirts, and the occasional splash. Fortunately, GE's profile cooking appliances have ingenious quick clean features like lift-top ranges, self-cleaning ovens, easy wipe surfaces, and sealed burners, so they clean with just a wipe. GE's profile appliances are so easy to clean, they take the joy of cooking to new heights.
At Ford Motor Company, we have more PhDs than an Ivy League school. So it's no surprise this past year, we've earned over 600 patents worldwide. But as all our people prove time and again, to have a better idea, all you need is the highest degree of dedication. Ford, quality is job one.
In business, you can't always count on having enough time. But you can count on AT&T, because only AT&T guarantees you a competitive price. Our 1-800-COMPARE Center will give you an immediate side-by-side price comparison. And we're so sure that our prices are competitive that if you don't agree, we'll give you 1 month's worth of long distance up to $500. These days, you can't count on much, but you can count on AT&T for the life of your business.
Mi amor, parece diferente esta noche.
Que no terminé de tipear el informe mensual de marketing. Es un plomo y me están presionando.
No te lo puedo creer. ¿Todavía no has oído hablar del nuevo software de reconocimiento de voz de IBM? Vos simplemente le hablas y te lo escribe automáticamente.
Estoy anonadada.
Monday, they promise 1 million men will march. But what are they marching for? Peter Jennings reports from Washington on ABC's World News Tonight, Monday.
I have a few words here, but don't have any time for them, so I'll save them until next week. In the meantime, we'll have Carol Simpson later today with details on the march and full coverage with Peter Jennings tomorrow. Until then, for all of us at ABC News, thank you.
For more information about This Week with David Brinkley on America Online, call 1-800-772-4222. For transcripts, call 1-800